I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening and welcome to the show. You had many places you could be tonight, but chose to be here with me, and for that I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. We're going to start off with some breaking news this evening out of the FBI and Homeland Security. They are warning that the public needs to be on heightened alert due to threats this holiday season and through the winter associated with the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict. The FBI says it's closely monitoring threats to public safety. We take all potential threats seriously and will work closely with our law enforcement partners to determine their credibility, share information, and take appropriate investigative action, the Bureau said in a public service announcement this afternoon. Per an assessment from the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, ongoing tensions related to the conflict between Israel and Hamas likely heightened the threat of violence targeting large public gatherings throughout the winter and holiday-related events, such as faith-based events, as in churches, New Year's Eve parties, and First Amendment protected events relating to the conflict, as in protests. The Bureau says these targets are likely to remain attractive and inspiring a range of ideologists due to their accessibility and symbolic nature. I would like to add to that shopping malls and restaurants. The FBI points to terrorist media organizations having called for attacks in the United States already, as well as radically or ethically motivated violent extremists having called for violence and celebrated attacks on the Jewish communities. The FBI says hate crimes have spiked nationwide since Hamas' deadly assault on October 7th on Israel that set off the war. We have also observed an increase in hoax bomb threats and active shooter threats targeting synagogues across the United States, likely intended to disrupt services and intimidate those in attendance. Calls for violence may increase in the days leading up to the holidays and before other notable events this winter, the FBI said. We therefore urge everyone to remain vigilant and to report any threats of violence or suspicious activity to law enforcement. Well, I, for one, along with most military veterans and veteran law enforcement officers, have remained vigilant, and we have contacted law enforcement and the FBI, and we've called on the FBI and Homeland Security and the Department of Justice to arrest Congresswoman Alejandra Omar and Rashid Tlaib for inciting violence against the Jewish community, white people, and Trump supporters. And you people at the FBI and Department of Justice and Homeland Security have done absolutely nothing to stop their threats. They're inciting violence. They're committing a hate crime. And you idiots are giving them a pass to continue their hateful speech. So as always, the American people have lost all confidence in your ability to keep us safe. Patriots, this is to you. Stay locked and loaded and ready to take the fight directly to any terrorists that rear their ugly, raghead ideology during this upcoming Christmas and throughout the winter. It is up to us. If you are waiting on this current FBI or Homeland Security or Department of Justice to protect you and keep you safe, then you are part of the problem. The FBI director has already testified many times in front of Congress that our open border is the biggest threat we face. So how about you arrest those that are facilitating the open border? Director Wray, how about you arrest Joe Biden? Arrest Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and arrest those Democrats lying to the American people by saying our southern border is secure. That would be a start at gaining back the FBI and Department of Justice credibility. But of course, you will not do that. And there will be more attacks. And there will be attacks more on Jewish people, on white people, on Trump supporters, on law enforcement officers. There will be hateful, radical attacks on Americans coming up. Trust me, it's already happening. And attacks on the Jewish community. Because those that are supposed to be in positions to protect you and me are not. They refuse to go after the main source of what the incitement is here in America. That should tell you all you need to know, folks. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all those that were affected by the tornado outbreak over the weekend in Eastern America. Residents on small Middle Eastern towns began organizing efforts to clean up debris and help neighbors after a deadly tornado ripped through the heart of Volunteer State over the weekend. I know that I have several subscribers that live in the Tennessee area, actually many, and friends that I've not heard from yet. Montgomery County officials have confirmed 3 deaths that took place in Clarksville, including 1 child, after a tornado Saturday brought peak winds of 150 miles per hour, tearing homes apart. More than 60 people were treated for injuries from that tornado, according to the National Weather Service. Volunteers and donations are needed in Montgomery County, where storm survey teams from the National Weather Service confirmed an EF3 tornado was responsible for the devastation in Clarksville. About 170,000 people live in Clarksville, and it is the home of Fort Campbell Army Base. National Weather Service surveyors continue to assess the damage left by at least 11 confirmed tornadoes from Saturday in Tennessee and Kentucky. Clarksville city officials said a coordinated volunteer cleanup began Monday, where the most extensive tornado damage occurred. Volunteers gathered at Marestic Church before being taken by bus to different cleanup locations. We had crews mobilized at daybreak today in these areas to clean up roadways, Clarksville Mayor Joe Pitts said. We've got shelter set up, food, showers, laundry service, whatever is needed. We've got it available at the time. Schools in Clarksville will remain closed until further notice. West Coast Elementary School there did sustain damage. But Pitt said the most concern about families impacted are the damage of the homes. Christmas will look different for our community this year, but our community is strong, we're resilient, and our resolve is strong, he said. We're already seeing an overwhelming response by our faith community, our nonprofit community, and the private sector. The business community is stepping up in a big way. Saturday's severe thunderstorms and tornado outbreak in the region took out power poles and damaged substations in Tennessee. Security video showed an explosion at the Nashville Electric Service Station, or substation, as an EF2 tornado barreled through Madison. As of yesterday, about 15,000 customers in the Volunteer State were still without power. Tennessee Valley Authority's official said restoration efforts are ongoing to repair and restore power across all of northern Tennessee. Clarksville Department of Electricity sustained the most damage and system impacts. They said 20,000 customers were without power during peak outages, which was down from 11,500 customers just yesterday. It will still be a long road ahead, they wrote on their Facebook page. There are 100 plus poles that will need to be replaced. Crews are working, rotating 24-hour shifts to complete safely the restore power. According to the National Weather Service, the EF3 twister that struck Clarksville on Saturday was a long track tornado and traveled 43 miles. Its starting point in northern Tennessee, where it finally lifted in southern Kentucky. The tornado tracked for more than 11 miles in Montgomery County alone. It destroyed 114 homes and caused major damage to nearly 270 additional homes. National Weather Service team found that an EF2 damage tornado near Eva Drive, where some homes were shifted off their foundations before the tornado intensified to an EF3, crossing Highway 41 and hitting several businesses and a strip mall where only the interior remains. The tornado caused massive damage in several neighborhoods, including on Henry Place Boulevard, where 2 adults and 1 child died after the tornado destroyed 4 brick homes there. And there's sadly going to be more deaths that they will find as they're going through these homes. National Weather Service estimated nearly 1,000 homes were damaged by the tornado, with 1,014 destroyed and 268 with major damage. Families ran for their lives when the tornado sirens started screaming on Saturday. Some barely taking cover just in time. Clarksville Mayor Joe Pitts said the tornado warning system sirens went off as planned when the tornado warning was issued. It called to 911 around 1:30 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. was the first call to 911. They said that it was the first person to call and report it. It dropped down just in a matter of seconds. Residents like Newman and state officials say Tennessee will move forward from this incredible heartbreak 2 weeks before Christmas. Newman said he plans to trust in the Lord and take it one day at a time. Well, to all those in Tennessee and Kentucky and all those that were affected by this, my wife and I have previously been right where you are now, and you will remain in our thoughts and prayers. If you are able to help, my friends, at this time, I ask that you make a financial donation to the American Red Cross. You can do so by going to their website. If I get more information from on-the-ground type efforts besides the Red Cross, I'll be sure to share that with you in the coming days. Several people are believing the lies coming from a few YouTubers and even former military generals that have not served in 20 plus years that contradict my reporting on the war between Russia and Ukraine, even going as far as calling me a liar for spreading false information when I said Russia was getting their ass kicked by the Ukrainian military. So let's look at the latest facts from the CIA and the Pentagon. Russia has lost 87% of their total number of active duty ground troops it had prior to launching its invasion of Ukraine, and 2/3 of its pre-invasion tanks, per the declassified U.S. intelligence assessment provided to Congress today. Still, despite heavy losses of men and equipment, Russia's President Vladimir Putin is determined to push forward as the war approaches its 2-year anniversary earlier next year, and officials are warning that Ukraine remains deeply vulnerable. The assessment sent to Capitol Hill comes as some Republicans had balked at the U.S. providing additional funding for Ukraine, and the Biden administration has launched a full court press to try to get supplemental funding through Congress. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is in Washington today, meeting with U.S. lawmakers and Joe Biden in a desperate bid to secure the military and economic aid he said is vital to Ukraine's ability to maintain the fight against Russia. Other newly declassified intelligence previously reported by CNN suggests that Russia seems to believe that a military deadlock through the winter will drain Western support for Ukraine and ultimately give Russia the advantage despite Russian losses and persistent shortages of trained personnel, munitions, and equipment, according to the National Security Council spokesperson. Isn't that interesting? They pegged that just right, didn't they? Since launching its offensive in October, we assess that the Russian military has suffered more than 13,000 casualties and over 220 combat vehicle losses, the equivalent of 6 maneuvering American battalions and equipment alone. Spokesperson Andrea Watson told CNN, before the invasion, Russia had a total standing military of approximately 900,000 active duty troops, including ground troops, airborne troops, special operation troops, and other uniformed personnel, according to the CIA. Since the start of the invasion, Russia has announced plans to increase the size of the armed forces to 1.5 million. Russia has also leaned heavily on convicts marshaled to the fight by the Wagner Group and has increased the age limit in certain categories of citizens to remain in the Reserve and National Guard in the Russian Federation. Bottom line, I stand by my reporting, backed up by my personal friends serving in active duty military, the National Guard, and veterans that I once served with that are on the ground in Ukraine, giving me this information that I give to you. And that, my friends, is more powerful than any washed up 20, 30 year ago general talking shit out the side of his ass to a reporter. As for the other YouTubers that are also sharing that shit, shame on you, because you're clueless as to what's actually happening over there. And with what they share with me, it backs up the reporting coming from the CIA and the Pentagon. Russia has been able to keep up its war effort despite the heavy losses by relaxing the recruitment standards. Basically, here's the deal. If you have a beating heart and you can hold a rifle and you can pull a trigger, they will send you to the front lines. That's how desperate the Russian military is at the moment. They're also having to dip into Soviet-era stockpiles of older equipment because the new stuff's running out. And they're also having to rely on North Korea to send them ammunition and equipment. Still, the assessment found that the war has sharply set back 15 years of Russia's effort to modernize its ground force. Of the 360,000 troops that entered Ukraine, Russia has lost 315,000 on the battlefield, according to the assessment. 2,200 of 3,500 tanks have been destroyed, according to the assessment. 4,400 of the 13,600 infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers have been destroyed. That's a 32% loss rate of the Russian military. As of late November, Russia lost over a quarter of its pre-invasion stockpiles of ground forces equipment, the assessment reads. This has reduced the complex and scale of Russian offensive operations, which have failed to make major gains in Ukraine since the invasion in early 2022. But it is the political environment in Washington that presents perhaps the greatest threat for Ukraine and not Russia. Some Republicans are stiffly rejecting any additional funding, and Senate Republicans are insisting on making it a part of a broader spending package to include money for Israel, Taiwan, and the U.S. southern border. The Biden administration is warning that the U.S. will soon be out of money for Ukraine and needs Congress to act immediately. That being said, if Congress does not pass a bill to allow more rockets, missiles, and ammo to be sent to Ukraine, Ukraine will fall. Russia will win the war. Then Russia will rebuild their military and then do what they've been saying they're going to do all along. They will go after other countries that split from Russia after the Cold War and after the wall in Berlin fell. They already have their eyes on taking the Baltics, Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, and Caspian Energy. What's the holdup, you might ask? Republicans in the House are saying not a single penny or military resource to go to Ukraine, again, unless it's the same amount to be used to secure our southern border. And that, my friends, Democrats are 100% against. A press statement was released this afternoon by the Pentagon, and it reads as follows. The United States today announced the last package of weapons and equipment to support the people of Ukraine as they defend their country and their freedom against Russian aggression. The package provides up to $200 million worth of arms and equipment previously directed from drawdowns for Ukraine. Capacities providing in today's package include air defense munitions, air defense system components, additional munitions for high mobility, artillery rocket systems, artillery ammunition, including 155 and 105 millimeters, high-speed anti-radiation missiles, anti-armor munitions, small arms ammunition, demolition packages, HISCO barriers, and spare parts or artillery equipment, services, training, and transportation. The United States and the coalition of more than 50 countries we have assembled continue to provide critical support for Ukraine forces. However, unless Congress takes action to pass additional aid, this package is the last package going to Ukraine. We continue to urge Congress to advance our national security interests by helping Ukraine defend itself and secure its future, a future in which its people rebuild and live safely in a resilient and thriving democracy. And that is from the Pentagon this afternoon. So, it is what it is. There are some people out there, sadly, that have no clue what they're talking about, and they say things on YouTube, and a lot of people just believe that shit because they've been following them for a while, and it's there. So whether or not you choose to believe them or you choose to believe somebody who has friends on the ground there actively engaged in this that they used to serve with, and friends at the Pentagon, and friends in the military, and friends in different law enforcement entities that are overlooking some of this stuff, it's up to you. It's a no-brainer. House Speaker Mike Johnson earlier today defended a vote scheduled this week to formalize the impeachment inquiry into President Biden, urging that unlike what Democrats did with the sham impeachment of former President Trump, Republicans are committed to the rule of law. Fox News' Chad Pergram pressed Johnson on an expectation from the GOP base to bring an impeachment vote sometime in the spring ahead of the 2024 presidential election. Johnson explained that House Republicans have come to this impasse in their investigation into President Biden's alleged involvement in his son, Hunter Biden's business dealings, and are hitting a stone wall because the White House is impeding that investigation and not allowing witnesses to come forward. And thousands of pages of documents that they requested, the White House refuses to turn over. The vote on a resolution to formalize the House impeachment inquiry, which is currently set for tomorrow, is not the same as a vote to impeach. We have no choice but to fulfill our constitutional responsibility. We have to take the next step. We're not making a political decision. It's not. It's a legal decision, Johnson said at the House Republican Conference Press today. So, people have feelings about it one way or the other. We can't prejudge the outcome. The Constitution does not prevent us to do so. We have to follow the truth where it takes us, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Noting some frustration about the time being invested in the impeachment probe, Johnson argued, "This is the way the founders anticipated that something like this would go. There should be any such thing as a snap impeachment, a sham impeachment, like the Democrats did against former President Trump. This is the opposite of that," Johnson said. "And that's why people are getting restless, because they want things to happen quickly. If you follow the Constitution and you do the right thing, you cannot rush it. You have to follow the facts." Piggybacking off Prigman's question about pressure from Johnson to bring the impeachment vote to, while Republicans hold a slim majority, another reporter asked Johnson, if you get into the spring and decide not to impeach the president based on the inquiry, you would be comfortable with the decision essentially absolving him months before the presidential election? "We're not going to prejudge the outcome of this," Johnson responded. "We can't because, again, it's not a political calculation. We're following the law, and we are the rule of law team. And I'm going to hold to that as my commitment. Tomorrow's vote will allow the House Judiciary Oversight and Ways and Means Committee to continue their investigation into the Biden family business dealings," House Majority Whip Representative Tom Emmer explained, stating that the Biden administration has been stonewalling our investigation from the very beginning. The Justice Department has refused to allow two attorneys to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. Emmer said at a press conference held today, the White House sent House Oversight and Accountability Chair Representative James Comer, House Judiciary Chair Representative Jim Jordan, a letter stating they have no intentions of complying with our subpoena and request for interviews without a formal vote. According to Emmer, who also stressed how the National Archives has withheld thousands of pages of documents and emails. It's clear the House will have to defend our lawful investigation in court. And pass this resolution will put us to the best possible position to enforce our subpoenas and set forth a clear process. As we have said numerous times before, voting in favor of an impeachment inquiry does not equal impeachment. Now, how sad is it that the Speaker has to keep repeating that to some of the Republicans? They're too dumb to understand it. We will continue to follow the facts wherever they lead. And if they uncover evidence of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, then and only then will the next steps towards impeachment proceedings be considered. No one in this country is above the law, and that includes President Joe Biden, he said. Well, while I agree 100% with you, our Department of Justice and our FBI beg to differ. If you're Hillary Clinton, you get a free pass. If you're James Comey, you get a free pass. If you're Loretta Lynch, yep, free pass. Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, free pass. And the list just goes on and on, which I don't have time to sit here and keep telling you. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. The United States is imposing sanctions today on over 250 individuals and entities in connection with Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The Department of State is imposing sanctions on over 100 entities and individuals, including those engaged in sanction evasion, furthering Russia's ability to wage its war against Ukraine, and bolstering Russia's future energy production and export capabilities. As part of this action, we are also designing entities involved in the proliferation of military equipment and munitions from the Dominican People's Republic of Korea to Russia. Currently, the Department of Treasury imposed sanctions on over 150 individuals and entities, including multiple networks used by Russia to circumvent sanctions, numerous third country suppliers to Russian military industry base, and additional Russian financial institutions. Now, here's my question. This is a sign of a weak leadership. Right there. We started supplying Ukraine with what they need to fight Russia. And almost 2 years into this, now we're going to do sanctions against Russia. That should have been done on day one, not 2 years later. That is a prime example of what happens when you have people in charge of a country that are totally clueless on how to conduct business under the umbrella of leadership. It's sad. It's a crying shame to watch what this administration is actively doing every single day that's hurting and destroying our efforts of our military and our men and women in law enforcement and you, the American public, that's suffering under the consequences of their blotched economy efforts. As New York City continues to struggle with a surge in migrants, former Democrat New York Governor Andrew Cuomo argued in a recent op-ed that the federal government should relocate migrants to different states. Cuomo's opt-in in the Wall Street Journal headlined "The Migrant Crisis and the Urban Death Spiral," wrote that the tipping point for some cities that have already been struggling with rising homelessness, crime, and high taxes is the migrant crisis. As an example, New York Democrat Mayor Eric Adams announced a massive budget deficit caused by largely an estimated $10 billion in migrant cost. The deficit required the reduction of city services, even police and sanitation services. This is a time when the number one issue is crime and quality of life. It's a death spiral, he said. The former governor of New York claimed that it was absurd for cities to be forced to shoulder the operational burden and financial cost of managing the migrant population. There is no legal, moral, or practical explanation, he continued. Congress writes the immigration laws, and the federal executive branch sets policies. It has created this crisis. To ignore the consequences is crazy, and it's Washington's responsibility. Cuomo then called on the federal government to start managing the new asylum seekers on a national level, locating them in states to serve local needs as well as those of migrants. The federal government should allocate the migrant population and relocate it across to all states, Cuomo said. You know what's coming, right? Yeah, my talking point's going to be at the end of this. Trust me. Hold on for them. Migrants could be an asset to the country, providing low-wage workforce for many businesses, he said. Smaller and depopulated cities can use new residents. Cuomo's request that the government move migrants to different states in the country comes as New York City Mayor Democrat Eric Adams continues to ask President Biden in Washington, D.C. for assistance in the ongoing migrant crisis. New York City has seen more than 140,000 migrants enter the city since last year, which has left the city's social services overwhelmed and forced deep budget cuts to policing, sanitation, and education. The migrant crisis has plagued the mayor for more than a year, and according to several university polls released Wednesday of last week, Adams' approval rating sits at 28% among self-identified registered voters. The rating is the lowest the poll has ever recorded for a New York City mayor since it began tracking statistics. On a national level, the Biden administration has told lawmakers that an average of 5,000 illegal immigrants are currently being released into the U.S. each day at the border. While there were over 670,000 illegal immigrants who evaded Border Patrol last fiscal year. So, just so we all understand what's going on here. These same players involved with these sanctuary cities that argued that Texas, New Mexico, Arizona are racist bigots and hate people south of the border, openly calling for them to shut up about the same thing they're now bitching about, called their complaints against the federal government fake news. It's not saying the exact same thing now that their state is in the same position. When the border states were complaining about the crime caused by the invasion on our southern border, the financial burden, having to cut social services and force deep cuts into policing, sanitation, and education, it was too bad, too sad, and deal with it, sanctuary cities said. Well, in my book, you're commonly referred to as fucking hypocrites. Maybe if you scream loud enough, because you're Democrats and the Biden administration is Democrats, they will help you out somehow. Help you out in a way that they're unwilling to help border states because they are run by who? Republicans. It hurts your brain to listen to them now spew this crap when they were just telling the border states to shut the fuck up and deal with it, and saying that they're lying about it. And here we are. Now, this next story is, I wondered about whether or not I was going to share this with you, but I figured, what the hell? So if you got little ones in the room, maybe have them step out. Of course, you should already know that by now if you're watching my show. Former President Bill Clinton had a few choice words about his wife Hillary's disastrous efforts during the 2016 election cycle, according to a new book. A passage in the book titled "The Squad, AOC and the Hope for a Political Revolution" by The Intercept's Ryan Grimm, which was released last week, says the former president allegedly tore into his wife's campaign for being inefficient communicators, and more specifically, said they could not sell pussy on a train full of military troops. The statement from Bill Clinton, which he allegedly made to a close confidant during the fall of 2016, came to light as Democrats reportedly tapped Hillary to help with Biden's re-election efforts. Grimm appears to be the first to report the remarks in a portion of the book examining the communication effort of her campaign and then Democrat presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. However, this was not the first time Bill Clinton allegedly chastised Hillary's campaign. Another book alleges that he had warned them not to ignore swing states. And perhaps Hillary's biggest blunder during the 2016 election, she notoriously faced widespread criticism for not campaigning through Midwestern states, which many believe swung the election to former President Donald Trump. But during the election, Bill allegedly urged Hillary's campaign not to neglect those areas. Pleas that ultimately fell on deaf ears, ABC News reported. Journalists Amy Perns and Jonathan Allen made the claim in their 2017 book, Shattered, Inside Hillary Clinton's Doomed Campaign, which received pushback from former Hillary Clinton staffers and Hillary herself. He thought these eggheads don't really know politics. They don't understand persuasion, Allen said during an ABC News podcast at the time of the book's release, adding that Bill advised Hillary's campaign to visit suburban and rural areas where Hillary likely would not garner much or most of the votes. He knew there was some power just in showing up. And despite Hillary's 2016 loss, drum roll please, Democrats are bringing her in to aid President Biden's reelection efforts. If that ain't stuck on stupid, I don't know what is. But please, please bring the bitch on. Continuing on, NBC News reported she held a fundraiser for Biden just last month at her Georgetown home and raised close to $1 million. Her popularity with women and critical parts of the Democrat base are considered assets for Biden in his attempt to expand his outreach to voters. Clinton's role in Biden's reelection efforts is expected to grow as the 2024 presidential election nears, according to NBC. Can't sell pussy in a train full of military troops. That's Bill Clinton for you. That's just one of the things he said, and he's done plenty other. The National Rifle Association, NRA, has lambasted a proposal from the ATF that the gun rights group says could unjustifiably criminalize Americans for selling a firearm and create serious confusion for legal gun owners who engage in firearm transactions. The Biden's ATF proposal rule, ATF 2022R-17, is just another attempt to demolish our Second Amendment rights with the potential to unjustly criminalize everyday Americans for engaging in lawful firearm transactions. The NRA Executive Director, Randy Court, said, "This rule blatantly disregards the recent NRA-backed burden ruling of the Second Amendment. It also creates serious confusion among lawful gun owners who buy and sell firearms legally for various purposes, from collecting to self-defense." The NRA director was reacting to the ATF proposal, otherwise known as definition of engaged in the business as a dealer in firearms, which would amend the agency's regulation and corporate provisions of the Biden Safer Communities Act, a gun control law signed by President Biden last year. The proposal would expand the definition of dealer to anyone who sells or offers for sale firearms and also represents to potentially buy or otherwise demonstrates a willingness and ability to purchase and sell additional firearms. The proposal would also incorporate Safer Community Act's definition of earning a profit from gun sales, meaning a dealer would include individuals who sell guns for other forms of profit, such as personal property or services offered, not just cash. The proposal would spark confusion among gun owners about which firearm transactions will require a firearm license. If the Biden administration were truly committed to combating crime, they would focus on enforcing existing laws and reform their soft-on crime policies, targeting actual criminals instead of law-abiding American gun owners. Following the House and Senate approval, Biden signed the Safer Communities Act into law last year, which was championed by gun control activists as the most significant firearm legislation in nearly 30 years. The law incentivized states to implement red flag laws and expand background checks for 18 to 21-year-olds. The ATF's proposal was introduced in August this year and was open for a 90-day commitment period from September 9th to December 7th, during which time 330,000 groups and individuals posted their public comments about the proposed rule, detailing in their response that the proposed rule would spread confusion for gun owners, notably collectors and competitive shooters who frequently purchase and sell firearms. Many NRA members buy and sell firearms for various lawful purposes. Collectors buy and sell to enhance their collections. Competition shooters buy and sell in search of a competitive advantage. And all exercise their right to buy and sell firearms, seeking arms that best fit their need to defend themselves and their families. But their freedom to do so is hindered by this proposed rule because it would create serious confusion about the firearm transactions to be conducted. Republican Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen led a coalition of 26 attorney generals on December 7th in a letter to the ATF, slamming the proposed shocking and unconstitutional attack on the Second Amendment. The proposal rule is unconstitutional, violating the Second Amendment by making any individual who sells a firearm without a federal license liable to civil, administrative, or even criminal penalties in America. It should be legal for a family member to sell a firearm to another family member without risk of prosecution. But the exception is flawed. Reading the exception, one can conclude that if a family member sells another family member a firearm for as little as $1 more than the original purchase price, that seller will be openly committing a crime. NRA members appreciate Montana General Austin Knudsen and the coalition of 26 attorney generals who, unlike Joe Biden, are truly honoring their oath of office by actively fighting against this rule. The NRA is resolute committed to fighting this ill-advised rule at every turn, safeguarding our constitutional rights from such blatant federal intrusion. One of many things we're doing to attempt to take away our Second Amendment rights or put more of us in jail. Regardless of what you think of Donald J. Trump, the only way that Democrats and liberals can stop Trump from being reelected is to put him in prison before the 2024 election. And they are hell-bent on doing just that by every means possible, to include illegal means by using the corrupt DOJ, FBI, judges, and DAs across the country. And that's what is known as election interference, which is a crime in the United States of America. Special Counsel Jack Smith's plan to use data from the cell phone of former President Trump used in his final weeks in office include data revealing when Trump's phone was unlocked and the Twitter application was open on January 6, 2021, according to the new court filings. Smith, in a filing yesterday, notified the court that he plans to call an expert witness to testify in the trial against Trump, the 2024 GOP presidential frontrunner, which is set to begin March 4th, a day before Super Tuesday. Again, election interference. Again, election interference at its worst and on full display for every American in the world to see. One of the experts Smith plans to call has knowledge, skill, experience, training, and education beyond the ordinary layperson regarding the analysis of cell phone data, including the use of Twitter and other applications on cell phones. In the following, Smith hints that the expert will be able to testify that he or she extracted and processed data from the White House cell phones used by Trump and other individuals to identify and the identity of the individual has not been released. And that is also a crime, right? Someone illegally hacked into the president's cell phones, and they are allowing them immunity from prosecution if they testify against Trump. Smith said the expert will also testify that they reviewed and analyzed data on Trump's phone and individual one's phone, including analyzing images found on the phone and websites visited. Smith said the expert has determined the uses of these phones, throughout the post-election period, including on and around January 6, 2021, has significant identifying the periods of time during which the defendant's phone was unlocked and the Twitter application was open on January 6. Trump in August pleaded not guilty in federal court to all 4 charges stemming from Smith's investigation to the 2020 election interference and the Capitol riot that took place on January 6 of 2021. Trump is charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction and an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. The cell phone data Smith plans to use in the trial is in addition to Trump's direct messages on social media platform, once known as Twitter. Unsealed court filings show that Smith's team obtained location data and draft tweets in addition to the former president's messages. Attorneys for the company, now named X, attempted to block and delay the efforts in January and February of this year. However, leading one federal judge to speculate that ex-owner and one-time CEO Elon Musk was attempting to ally himself with Trump. The social media giant ultimately lost the struggle, however, and was forced to hand over an extensive list of data related to the @RealDonaldTrump account, including all tweets created, drafted, favored, liked, or retweeted. By the way, we all saw what Trump tweeted as well. Millions of America saw what he was tweeting because he had millions of followers. And I, for one, do not recall a single tweet that was illegal in any way. The handover also included searches on the platform surrounding the 2020 election, devices used to log into the account, IP addresses used to log into the account, and a list of associated accounts. Meanwhile, Smith yesterday asked the Supreme Court to rule on whether former President Donald Trump can be prosecuted on charges relating to his effort to overturn the 2020 election results. A federal judge ruled the case could go forward, but Trump said he would ask the federal appeals court in Washington to reverse that outcome. Then Smith realized it would most certainly be overturned. So now Smith is attempting to bypass the appeals court, the usual step in the next process, and have the Supreme Court take up the matter directly. The Supreme Court, late yesterday, asked Trump's lawyers to respond to the special counsel's motion by next Wednesday, December 20th, 2 days later than Smith had originally requested. The court's next scheduled conference date for the consideration of such matters will be January 5th, 2024. The court's brief order did not signal what the ultimate outcome would be, obviously. So, with that said, for those of us that have been voting for several years now, we're hearing the exact same no-merit talking points about Donald Trump coming from Democrats and liberals all over again. It's like deja vu. You might be wondering why. Why are they repeating the same thing all over again when we know it was all fake news the first 2 times, 2016 and 2020, such as Trump is a threat to American democracy. And in many cases, they say the greatest threat to our democracy. Trump wants to be a dictator and rule America. If elected, Trump will not step down at the end of his term. Trump is a racist and hates Mexicans and black people. Trump is a pathological liar. Trump is going to get us all killed in a nuclear war with Russia, North Korea, China, or Iran. The list of no-merit bullshit is relentless, to say the least. But there's a logical explanation behind this madness. And here it is. 49% of the average age of registered voters in America is between the age of 18 to 24 years old, which means that in 2020, they were 14 to 18 years old. And in 2016, they were 10 to 14 years old, meaning that 99.99% of them have never heard these talking points or clueless about Donald Trump. So they don't know that the talking points are fake. For the most part, we're totally clueless about politics in general. The Democrats and liberals are once again spreading this false information for votes because they cannot win elections based on facts about the candidate. They can't win on Joe Biden's failed leadership on the border, with crime, the economy, with our military, with law enforcement, and everything else the administration has touched and broken. So it is up to us, you and me, to spread the truth, to educate our young Americans on reality. If not, they will believe this crap and spread it far and wide until the total destruction of our democracy is accomplished, which is what I believe the Democrats and liberal agenda is all along. The children in school now are going to be just like this group coming up in 2024 to vote. They don't know the truth because it's not being taught to them in schools. What they're being taught is that Trump is this evil person that, they have made him out to be, seriously, and this isn't an exaggeration at all. They have made him out to be Hitler combined with Saddam Hussein. They made him out to be Satan. They're spreading that to our youth all across this nation, which is why it's so important for parents to step up and make sure your kids know the truth. There are so many things that Donald Trump said and did that are pretty damning that they could be using, but they're not. They're going to go on things that aren't true. Russia. Phone calls with Ukraine. He's a racist. He's a bigot. He will destroy the country and run it like a dictator. He's Osama bin Laden in the flesh. That's what they're pushing. And it's going to get way worse with Hillary Clinton joining in on the Biden campaign. It is up to you and me, the American patriots of this country, to stand up to this rhetoric wherever you see it, wherever you hear it, and educate our youth on facts versus bullshit. And that's what the Democrats are pushing. Bullshit all over again, because this new group of voters doesn't have a clue. Folks, you had many places you could be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much. In the description of this video and all my videos and all my shows, you can see the other places on social media. You can follow me. Please do so. I'll follow you back. That's how we spread this information. Also, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to this channel. Share it with your family and friends. Let people know, because as we get closer and closer to the election, what's coming out of my mouth, and there are several other people on YouTube and other people that have websites just like I do and are using other platforms as well. They're trying to get the message out there that's factual and true that we have to share. And also, we let you know when shit's out there that just absolutely has no merit whatsoever. And that's just as important. Hope that you will join me next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, at 8 p.m. Central Time. Until then, as always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving in the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders and their families, our Angel families, our Blue and Gold Star families, and our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each of you. Thank you for tuning in. I love you. God bless, and I'll see you soon.